The city of Kerith used to shine. Tall towers made of silver glass touched the sky. Sky streams buzzed above with flying ships. Lights never turned off. Music, laughter, and trade filled the streets. But now there was only silence. Everything was gone. The towers had fallen. The sky was black with smoke. Fires burned where homes once stood. There was no law now, no safety. Just hunger, cold, and fear. Two sisters, alien girls from the Lyra species, moved quietly through the ruins. Their bodies were thin. Bones showed under their blue skin. Dirt covered their faces. They wore torn robes, and their feet bled from walking without shoes. The older sister, Lyra, was 13. She held her little sister's hand tightly. "Don't look at them," she whispered as they passed by a group of scavengers. The younger one, Nia, only 8, clung to her sister's arm. Her stomach growled loudly. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. "I'm hungry, Lyra," she said in a tiny voice. Lyra swallowed hard. She felt the same pain in her belly. But they had nothing to eat, no money, no family left. Their parents had died when the bombing started. Their uncle had sold them to a slaver. Lyra had escaped with Naya when he was drunk. Now they were alone in the ruins of civilization. That night, the wind was cold. Ash blew across the street. Lyra looked for a safe place to hide, but then she smelled something, food. Her nose twitched. A strange smell, warm, smoky, and full of spice, floated through the air. She pulled Nia toward the scent. Heart beating fast, at the far end of the broken market, there was a small light, a fire, and behind the fire, a stall made from scrap metal and wood. Someone stood behind it, a human. Humans were rare here. Most had left after the fall. The ones who stayed usually kept to themselves, worse hunted survivors. But this one had built a food stall. Steam rose from a black pot. Pieces of meat, bread, and stew bubbled in a small cooker. Lyra's mouth watered. Nia's eyes went wide. But they didn't have money. Lyra looked down at her body, then at Nia. Her heart broke. She had heard stories. Girls trading their bodies for a piece of bread. Some never came back, but Lyra had no choice now. Her sister was dying. "Stay behind me," she told Nia. Together, they stepped into the firelight. The human looked up. He was tall, with a thick beard and tired eyes. His clothes were patched. A long weapon sat beside him, but his hands were calm. He didn't speak at first, just watched the two girls. Lyra's voice shook. "Food, please. We can pay." The man raised an eyebrow. "Pay?" Lyra lowered her head. She reached for the tie of her robe. "Our bodies, you can have us. If you feed my sister." There was a long silence. Then the man's face twisted. Not in hunger, but anger. He threw down his spoon. "Put your robe back on." Lyra froze. He turned and grabbed 2 bowls. He filled them with stew and handed one to each girl. "Sit, eat. No one's touching anyone here." The girls stared in shock. No threats, no demands. Just hot food and soft bread. They sat on the ground, trembling, and began to eat. Nia cried with every bite. Lyra held back her tears, but inside, she was shaking. Who was this man? Names. "Daniel," he said, pouring himself tea. "I came here for trade, but stayed when everything fell apart." "Why?" Lyra asked, her voice hoarse. He shrugged. "Too many people run. Someone has to help." Lyra looked at him, unsure. She had never seen a human like this before. That night, as the fire burned low, Daniel tossed them a blanket. "You can sleep near the fire. Don't worry, I'll keep watch." Lyra still didn't trust him. She stayed awake for hours, eyes on Daniel. But he never came close. He just sat, sharpening his knife and sipping tea like a quiet protector. Nia snored softly beside her, warm and full for the first time in days. The sky above them was broken, the stars hidden by smoke. But down here, beside a strange human's fire, a tiny spark of hope had appeared. And that was how everything began. Lyra woke up with a start. The morning air was cold. Hay and ash still floated gently from the broken skies. But for the first time in many nights, her little sister wasn't crying from hunger. Kia was curled up under a warm blanket, cheeks full and peaceful. She even smiled in her sleep. Eliare looked around. The human Daniel was still there, sitting beside the smoking pot, pouring water into a kettle. His back was to them. His rifle was within reach, but not in his hands. He had not touched them in the night. He had not asked for anything. Lyra didn't understand him. Humans weren't like this. Not here. Not after the fall. She slowly sat up and moved toward him. Daniel looked over his shoulder and nodded. Sleep well. She didn't answer. He placed a small cup of tea near her. Then another beside Nia. Not much sugar left, he said softly, but it's warm. Lyra looked down at the tea. Her hands trembled slightly. Why? Akish asked. Finally, Daniel paused. Why what? Why are you feeding us? We have nothing. You could have taken anything you wanted. He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He looked her straight in the eyes and said, because you looked like my little sister before the war. She died on another planet. I wasn't there to save her. Lyra didn't know what to say. She sipped the tea. It was bitter, but the warmth traveled through her cold body like sunlight. When Nia woke up, she blinked, confused. Lyra, I had a dream. We ate food. Lyra smiled faintly. It wasn't a dream, Nia. The little one gasped, sitting up. Is it morning already? Daniel handed her a piece of sweet bread. Nia giggled like a child again, her face lighting up as if the world had never burned. The moment was so strange, so soft, it felt dangerous. Like if Lyra blinked, it would vanish, she whispered. Are we allowed to stay? Daniel didn't look up. He was cutting vegetables now. You don't need permission. Stay if you want. Help if you can. Lyra frowned. Help. He nodded. I serve food. You can clean bowls, wipe tables, stack wood. It's not much, but you'll have meals. Lyra looked at Nia, still licking crumbs from her fingers. Then she nodded. I can. Work. Later that day, the ruined streets began to stir. Word had spread. The human is cooking again, they whispered. He has bread, meat, salt. Hungry aliens, some desperate, some dangerous, drifted toward the scent of food. A lizard-headed traitor came first. He threw down old batteries in exchange for soup. Then a broken miner offered cracked gold chips. By noon, a line had formed near Daniel's stall. Lyra wiped bowls and Nia fetched wood for the fire. The human gave orders gently, never raising his voice. He treated them not like slaves, but like workers. But not everyone was pleased. 2 alien men stood nearby, watching the sisters. Their clothes were patched with gang colors. Their eyes were hungry, not for food. Those girls, one of them growled. They're free now, just like that. Used to belong to Brock's lot, said the other. Should have stayed where they belonged. Daniel heard them. He glanced over, then loaded his rifle calmly and set it on the table in full view. He didn't speak. He just looked at them with eyes that didn't blink. The men walked away. That night, as the fire crackled and the stall closed, Daniel passed out blankets and warm water. Nia cuddled against her sister, half asleep. Lyra watched. Daniel stirred the last pot. You still don't ask for anything, she said. Most would. Daniel gave her a tired smile. "I know." "Are you a soldier?" was he replied. "Not anymore." Lyra tilted her head. "Then what are you?" Daniel stared into the fire for a long time. The flames reflected in his eyes like memories. "A man who made too many mistakes," he said at last. "And now, just someone who makes soup." Lyra didn't understand all his words, but she understood one thing clearly. He was not like the others, not anymore, and maybe, just maybe, he was someone worth trusting, even in a world where everything had ended. The wind howled like a wounded beast that night. Ruined buildings stood like broken teeth against a sky filled with ash. Somewhere far off, a scream echoed and, then, silence. Again, but near the glowing fire of the food stall, it was warm. Lyra sat cross-legged on a piece of folded cloth. Her eyes followed the flickers of flame, but her ears stayed alert. She had learned not to trust the quiet. Not in this world. Not after what she had seen. Behind her, Naya slept wrapped in a thick, old blanket. Her cheeks were red from the heat, her belly full. She looked like a child again, not the starving, shivering creature from 2 nights ago. Daniel sat near the fire, polishing a metal pan. His movements were slow, steady. No fear. No fear, no rush. Lau watched him carefully. She had met many males before, alien and human both. None were like him. He didn't look at her like she was meat. He didn't ask what she could offer. He didn't ask questions at all. He just gave them space, and warmth, and food that was more dangerous than cruelty. Kindness felt like a trap. "Why do you always sit with your back to the alley?" she asked suddenly. Daniel didn't stop working. "So I see what's coming." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "But then your back's open to us." Now he looked up. His eyes, golden brown and full of something hard to name, met hers. "If you were going to hurt me," he said softly, "you would have done it already." Lyra looked down, her fingers curling over the cloth. She didn't know how to answer. That the next morning, Lyra woke up before the sun rose. The fire was down to embers, but Daniel was already up, chopping dried root with his small knife. The smell of crushed herbs filled the air. "You're awake early?" he said without looking. "I'm used to moving before light," she replied. "It's safer." Daniel nodded. "Same." She stood up and stretched. Her arms were still sore from cleaning pots the day before, but it was a good pain. A clean pain. "Want to make flatbread?" he asked. Lyra blinked. "Me." Daniel handed her a small sack of flour and pointed to a stone slab. "Mix it slow. Use only a little water. It should feel like skin." "Skin?" she frowned. Daniel smirked. "Soft, but strong." She followed his instructions, curious, for the first time, her hands did something other than stealing or hiding. They created. Nia woke to the smell of cooking and giggled with joy. "You're cooking, Lyra." The 3 of them ate together bread, stew, and dried fruit Daniel had saved from trade. Nia danced a little around the stall as she chewed. For a moment, it didn't feel like the world had ended. Later, a family of 4 arrived. A mother with broken horns. A father missing an arm. 2 tiny children covered in soot. Daniel fed them without a word. No payment. No questions. Lyra watched the parents bow low, eyes full of tears. "I don't get it," she whispered later. "Why help them? They're not your problem." Daniel looked at her. "I don't fix the world, just my part of it." Lyra didn't reply, but the words stuck in her mind. That night, the fire was bigger. Daniel had traded for more wood. A few regulars had started helping. Stack supplies. Someone even gave him a tarp to build a roof over the stall. The community was growing. Nia curled up on Daniel's sleeping mat without asking. She tugged his coat over herself and mumbled, "You smell like soup." He chuckled softly. Lara sat beside him, closer than before. She didn't say much, but for the first time, she let her shoulder touch his arm. Not in fear, not in trade. Just for warmth. "Do you think it'll ever come back?" she asked. "What?" "The world. The way it was before." Daniel stared at the fire. Not the same. But maybe something better. Smaller. Kinder. Lyra looked into the flames. She didn't believe in better. Not yet. But beside the fire, with her sister safe and her stomach full, she allowed herself to hope for something. Something like a new beginning. At first, the streets were silent. Just crumbling. Buildings and cold wind. The only sound was Daniel's cooking tools and Nia's humming as she cleaned spoons. Lyra helped cut meat, her hands steadier now. She didn't flinch at every sound anymore. But by the fourth morning, something had changed. The silence was gone. It started with footsteps, slow, dragging ones. Then whispers. Then eyes watching from the ruins. Hungry eyes. Lyra noticed it first. She nudged Daniel. "They're watching us again." He nodded without turning. "They've been watching since yesterday." Soon they came closer, one by one. The forgotten, the desperate, the violent hand, the curious stepped out from the shadows. They came in rags. Some were limping. Some carried weapons. Some carried nothing but pain in their eyes. Daniel didn't stop cooking. He stirred the pot, added spice. Roasted root vegetables and bones. The smell filled the air like a memory of better times. A tall insectoid male approached the counter. "No. Money," he said coldly. Daniel looked at him. "Then wait your turn." The bug-like creature twitched but stepped back. Others began forming a line. Lyra watched from behind the counter. Her hands trembled slightly. "This doesn't feel right." On there. "Just hungry," Daniel said. "No," she replied. "Some of them are more than hungry. They want to take." By noon, the crowd was 30 strong. A few gave scraps for food-broken radios, metal nails, old coins. Most gave nothing. Daniel still fed them. "Trade comes later," he told Lyra. "But first, we stop the hunger." It was madness. Noble madness. But it was working. Word was spreading. The human feeds anyone. He has clean food, real meat, no poison. 2 alien girls work beside him. He doesn't touch them. He treats them like family. By evening, more came. Some with bruises. Some with children. Some with stories too broken to tell. And that's. When they returned, the 2 alien men with gang tattoos, the ones who had watched the girls before, stepped forward. They didn't stand in line. They walked straight up to the counter. Eyes locked on Lyra and Nia. Well, one of them grinned, flashing broken teeth. "Look at you. Wearing aprons now." Lyra stepped back. Nia hid behind her. Daniel didn't blink. "You're not here to eat," he said quietly. The second thug leaned on the table. "We're here for what's ours. Those girls belong to Brock. We remember. No one belongs to anyone anymore." Daniel replied. "Then maybe we take this stall instead," the first thug said. Hands sliding toward his belt. Lyra's heart stopped. Daniel didn't reach for his gun. Instead, he calmly pulled a small switch under the table. There was a click, and a hidden spring-loaded turret popped up behind the counter, humming with quiet energy. Everyone froze. "Try me," Daniel said. The 2 thugs looked at the turret, then at Daniel's steady eyes, and then they laughed. Not like it was funny, but like they were warning him. This isn't over. One of them spat, then they melted back into the crowd. That night, the stall was quiet again. Daniel sat beside. The fire, checking his tools. Lyra sat across from him, sharpening a kitchen knife. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was angry. They'll come back. I know you should have let me stab him. Daniel looked up. You shouldn't have to stab anyone. She stared at the flames. We will have to, if we want to keep this. He said nothing. But he didn't disagree. Later, as Naya slept, Lyra sat alone in the cold. She stared out into the night. There were too many shadows now, too many hungry people, too many angry ones. Daniel joined her quietly. You are right, she said. The food brought them, but not all came for peace. Hope is dangerous, Daniel replied. But we serve it anyway. Why? Because someone has to. She looked at him. You're going to get us all killed. He gave her a tired smile. Then we die full. Lyra shook her head. You're insane. He didn't argue. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye. If you die, who feeds us then? Daniel replied softly. Then you feed them. Her breath caught in her chest. She didn't answer, but deep inside, something stirred, something warm, something painful. For the first time, Lyra began to understand what Daniel was really building. Not just a stall, not just safety, a new world. One fire, one bowl, one girl. At a time. The market smelled like fire and fear. By now, the stall wasn't just a food stand, had become a symbol. A place where the weak could eat without shame, where children found warmth. Where a human and two alien girls stood together and proved. Kindness still lived, but kindness was expensive in a broken world, and someone had finally come to collect. His name was Brock. He rode into the city on a rust-covered crawler, surrounded by 6 fighters. His body was massive, half alien, half machine. One arm was steel. His eyes were glowing red. His mouth full of sharp teeth and silver. People ran when they saw him. Even gangs disappeared into ruins. But Daniel didn't run. And neither did Lyra. They just stood behind the food stall, Nia holding a ladle like a toy weapon, her little hands shaking. Brock stopped 10 steps from the counter. He grinned like he owned everything around him. I heard you've been feeding my property, he said, voice like gravel. Daniel looked at him calmly. I feed whoever's hungry. Brock's steel fist slammed the table. The bowls rattled. The soup spilled. These girls, he growled, pointing at Lyra and Nia. They belong to me before the fall. You have 2 choices, give them back or make me take them. Nia whimpered. Lyra stepped in front of her. We don't belong to anyone, she said. Her voice was small, but her eyes were steady. Brock laughed darkly. You belong to the day I branded your uncle. The day he sold you. That deal doesn't break just because the world burned. Daniel slowly placed a bowl down and straightened. And if I say no? Brock shrugged. Then I burn this stall to ash. I take the girls, and I leave your bones for rats. The market held its breath. People watched from rooftops and ruins. Hoped Daniel would surrender. Others waited for blood. Then Daniel did something no one expected. He stepped forward. No weapons. No armor. Just a man with tired eyes. I'll make you an offer, Daniel said. Brock blinked. What? You're hungry? Everyone is. Sit, eat, talk. You want trade. Let's trade. Brock's fighters reached for their weapons, but Brock raised a hand. He stared at Daniel for a long time, and then he sat. Lara couldn't believe it. Daniel served him a bowl of stew. Hot, spiced. Real. Brock sniffed it, tasted it, grunted. You cook like a soldier, he muttered. I was one, Daniel replied. Which war? All of them, Daniel said flatly. Brock smirked. I killed soldiers like you. I buried friends like you, Daniel said softly. The fire crackled. Brock looked at Lyra. The tall one has fire. She sell well. Daniel's voice dropped. They're not for sale. Brock finished his stew, wiped his mouth with his sleeve. He stood slowly. You think this stall makes you strong? Daniel stared at him. No, but it makes us worth something. Brock stepped close, chest to chest. You bought time today, human. But you can't feed everyone. When the food runs out, the world remembers what it really is. He turned to Lyra and Naya. You should have come back. It would have hurt less. Then he and his fighters left without a fight. But the message was clear. That night, Tia was smaller. No one talked. Not even Naya. Daniel sat cleaning his knife, quiet and thoughtful. Lyra stared at the empty bowls. He'll come back, she whispered. I know, Daniel replied. With more men, more guns. Yes, we should run. Daniel shook his head and leave them. He pointed at the shadows, at the children, the broken, the hungry, who had started to sleep nearby. Too afraid to be alone. They're staying because of this place, he said. Because of us. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she said the one thing Daniel didn't expect. If we stay, teach me to fight. Daniel looked up. Liar single quotes us. Eyes were burning. Not with fear, but with something sharper. Stronger. Teach me to protect Nia, to protect this. He studied her. Then slowly nodded. Tomorrow, he said, we begin. From that night on, something shifted. Lyra wasn't just a survivor now. She was becoming a shield, not for herself, but for others. The stall was different now. It wasn't just a place to eat. It was a line in the dirt. A line between hope and hunger. Between decency and chaos. And everyone in the ruins knew it. And some hated it. Daniel trained Leora in the early morning. Before the smoke rose and the air turned bitter. She learned how to grip a blade, not like prey, but like someone who would fight back. She learned how to read people's eyes, who was desperate, who was dangerous, and who just wanted warmth. Naya helped in her own way, serving food, telling stories, drawing on broken crates with charcoal. Her laugh reminded people what peace sounded like. But peace doesn't last in a place built on ash. It happened on the 7th day. Right as the sun tried to break through the clouded sky, a sharp whistle echoed through the ruins. Then came the roar of engines. 3 armored trucks rolled in, tires screeching, smoke curling from pipes. On top, gunmen howled and waved, tattered. Flags.Lera dropped her ladle. Daniel didn't speak. He just reached under the stall and pulled out his weapon. Get behind the barrels, he said to the girls. Nia obeyed. Lyra didn't. I stay with you. Daniel looked at her. Then stay. Quiet. The truck stopped just 20 feet away. From the middle one, Brock stepped out. But this time, he wasn't smiling. His steel arm hissed as he pointed toward the stall. You were warned, he shouted. You protect what's mine. Then you pay. For it, Daniel didn't flinch. You're not here for trade anymore, are you? Brock sneered. No, I'm here for a message. He raised his hand and all hell broke loose. The gunmen opened fire. Bullets tore through broken walls. Smoke bombs filled the air. People screamed. Some ran. Others ducked behind rubble. But Daniel didn't run. He stood his ground, firing shot. After shot with precision, his bullets didn't miss. 3 gunmen dropped before the rest even realized he had moved. Lyra grabbed a metal pipe and dragged Nia under the counter. One raider leaped the stall, but Lyra smashed his face with a pipe, blood spraying the stew pot. He collapsed at her feet. She stared at her hands, shaking but didn't stop. "Don't touch my sister," she growled. Daniel fought like a ghost, appearing, striking, disappearing. But he was only one man. They began to circle him. Lyra screamed. "Behind you?" Too late. A raider tackled Daniel to the ground. His rifle slid across the dirt. Another came with a blade. Lyra ran. Not away, but toward the danger. She jumped on the attacker's back, biting, clawing. The blade sliced her arm butt. She didn't stop. Danielle elbowed the man on top of him and grabbed a broken plank. He struck hard. Blood hit the dirt. The sound of boots retreating echoed in the air. Brock stood alone now. Watching the chaos, he looked at Daniel bleeding, panting, defiant. Then at Lara cut, trembling but still standing. And then, for the first time, Brock hesitated. He spat in the dirt. "You think this makes you heroes?" Daniel raised the rifle. "No, just human," Brock growled. "This isn't over." He climbed into the truck, and the raiders fled. Silence returned. But it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that follows blood. Daniel sat on a crate, tying cloth around Lara's wound. She hissed in pain. "You were lucky," he said. "I wasn't." "Brave," she whispered. "You ran into a man with a knife to protect your sister. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen." Liara blinked. Her lip trembled, but she didn't cry. Nia curled into her lap, holding her tightly. "Will they come back?" the little one asked. Daniel looked at the blood-stained ground, at the shattered pots, the smoking crates. "The empty bowls?" "Yes," he said quietly. "They'll come back, but so will we." That night, people returned silently, carefully. Some brought bandages. Others brought food. One alien left a blanket at the stall and walked away without speaking. The stall wasn't gone. It was wounded. But it was alive, and now. It wasn't just Daniel's. It belonged to all of them. A spark in the ruins. A place worth bleeding for. The next morning, the sun actually broke through the ash for a few short minutes. Golden light fell across the stall, touching the soot-covered pots, the cracked bowls, and the blood-stained wood. It didn't stay long, but it was enough to remind everyone that warmth still existed. Somewhere above the clouds, Daniel stood beside the fire pit, stirring quietly. His shirt was torn at the sleeve. His ribs were wrapped with bandages. One of his fingers was broken and tied with a twig and cloth. But he was still standing, still cooking. Across from him, Liara flipped flatbread with her one good hand. The other was wrapped too. Her movements were slow, careful, but steady. She didn't need him to guide her anymore. Nia sat on an upside-down crate, giggling as she handed out warm cups of broth to passing children. A hand-drawn sign in shaky letters hung behind her. One bowl, one smile, one fire. That morning, the line at the stall was longer than ever. People had returned, not just to eat, but to help. An old farmer brought roots. A scarred mercenary sharpened kitchen knives. A group of orphans offered to sweep the ground. Everyone remembered what Daniel and the girls had done. They remembered who stayed when raiders came, who bled when no one else would, who defended something fragile, and made it stronger. Just after midday, a stranger arrived. She wore white armor with blue markings, clean, not local. Her helmet had the insignia of the Reclamation Fleet, a sign of law and rebuilding. People froze when they saw her, hope and fear. In their eyes, the woman removed her helmet, revealing silver hair and purple skin. An off-worlder. She walked up to the stall slowly and placed a dataship on the counter. Daniel raised an eyebrow. She spoke clearly. "We intercepted a transmission. A certain warlord bragged about attacking a peace zone. A food stall led by a human." Daniel said nothing. Lyra, Tensed. The woman nodded at Naya, and 2 alien girls once listed as missing. This must be the place. Daniel crossed his arms. What do you want? The officer smiled. To help and to say, well done. She stepped aside and a small hover truck pulled forward, loaded with supplies, clean water, sealed food, cooking gear, tents, for rebuilding. She said Daniel didn't move, but Lyra stepped forward. She looked the woman in the eye and asked, what's the price? No price, the officer replied. You already paid it with courage. Nia jumped up and down. We have real flour again. Lyra didn't smile yet, but she finally breathed. That night, a feast was cooked. Not fancy, not rich, but full of laughter. Stew with meat, fresh bread, roasted roots and clean water in real cups. Daniel sat on a crate beside the fire. His legs ached, but his heart was full. Lyra sat beside him, chewing quietly. She didn't talk much, but now she stayed close without fear. Still think it's insane? Daniel asked. She looked at the crowd around the Stahl families. Kids, aliens, humans, soldiers, wanderers eating together, laughing like survivors who had become neighbors. Yes, she said. But it worked. Kea skipped over and flopped into Daniel's lap. So are we a real family now? Daniel looked at her, surprised. You want that? Nia nodded fast. You feed us. You protect us. You gave us blankets and made Lyra strong again. That's what dads do, right? Lyra turned her face away, but her shoulders shook slightly. She wasn't laughing. Daniel looked down at the little alien girl curled in his arms. He thought of his sister, long gone. He thought of the world before the collapse, and the world they were building now. Yeah, he said at last, voice low. I guess I'm your dad now. The fire burned low, but the light reached far in a world made of ruin. One food stall had become more than survival. It was a home, a beginning, and in the center of it, a human who had nothing and gave everything. That's how families are made, not by blood, but by fire, food, and love.